Hey guys, and welcome to the Working Money Channel. Macro investor and fund manager Dan Tapiero says that institutional interest in the crypto industry has accelerated throughout the bear market. This coming from Michael Branch here on Twitter. And so Dan Tapiero is saying this, okay, institutional interest specifically. So we're not even talking about the retail end of it. This is institutional interest. So as institutions, we're seeing the crypto prices come down from the top back in November of 2021. So over a year ago. They have been getting really bullish on cryptocurrency. I'm assuming they were, paying attention to what was happening with Terra Luna and Celsius, Voyager, all those companies, maybe really piled in the summer when the market was very low. By the way, this is the total crypto market cap on the daily. And then we finally had the FTX story, and I think that is probably what sealed the deal right in and around here in November and December of 2022 when the market was depressed, again, down 75% since this high. Investors noticed these patterns down at the bottom and were thinking to themselves, boy, probably the right time to get in. Of course, since the beginning of 2023, we have only seen the market rally. So, even though we didn't see the same kinds of corrections that we saw in the last bear market, down 88%, we are still down 75%, so down quite a bit. And the theory, or at least one theory, goes as such that because Bitcoin is becoming less and less volatile over the years, and some could argue that maybe it's, not, it's still very volatile, but it's becoming less volatile over the years, that these corrections are just not going to be as deep. And so, today's 75% correction was yesterday's 85% correction, in other words. So they're seeing an opportunity. Obviously, 2023 has been very bullish, at least as of now. And so it's the smart money, guys. The institutional interest in crypto has accelerated throughout the bear market. In a new Real Vision interview, Tapiero says that institutions like endowments, teachers' funds, and pension funds have their eye on cryptocurrency and are noticing fundamental strength building within the asset class. So, if these, people behind these funds and these pensions are worth their weight, chances are they are looking at the cryptocurrencies that solve problems. They probably also hold a little bit of Bitcoin, likely hold Ethereum, but are also, hopefully also doing their research and looking towards the cryptocurrencies, like, for example, in this World Economic Forum report, the Global Future Council on Cryptocurrencies, looking at particular cryptos that are going to solve problems, like Algorand, like XRP, like Stellar, just to name 3 out of 6 on this list. I personally do hold Algorand, XRP, and Solana. Just to give you guys full disclosure there, I do not hold these other cryptocurrencies. Nevertheless, I do think that, if you do your research, you can find hints on the internet as to where technology is going to move. Tapiero, the co-founder of digital asset equity fund 10T Holdings, says that increased activity in decentralized finance, stablecoins, and the Bitcoin ecosystem have caught the attention of the large players. Here's a quote. He says, right now, it's really picking up. You'd be surprised. It's from the people who have no exposure, but who sort of, especially in the last 6 weeks, they're sort of seeing, oh, well, Bitcoin's up 70% on the year or 30% during this banking crisis. And you know what? That kind of makes sense. And they didn't need a bailout in that world. And there are some bad actors, but there's also a lot of value there and a lot of different things going on. There's also stuff in the DeFi world. There's also the stablecoin business. There are NFTs or non-fungible tokens, a lot of different things, ordinals on Bitcoin even. The investing veteran said that the latest bear market differs from the last downtrend. So guys, listen to this. This is interesting. It differs from the last downtrend because there are way more developments in the crypto ecosystem besides Bitcoin and Ethereum. Another quote down here. So the space itself is not just relying upon the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's the big difference for me from back in 2018 and 2019 is that so many things are going on underneath the hood, i.e. Ripple adoption, other blockchains obviously developing. This is why we look towards projects that do solve problems. The number of developers that have entered the blockchain space is now at an all-time high. Through 2022, it does keep increasing. The Bitcoin hash rate has just hit an all-time high as well. The number of players in the NFT space from 18 months ago is up exponentially. The number of layer ones that have the top 5 or 6 usage is at an all-time high as well. So it's no longer just about the price of those 2 leading ones and some of the other cryptocurrencies. So I think that's what's also attracting institutional people who are understanding that this is a once-in-a-generation type of technology. This also reminds me of when Kevin O'Leary said that he would not touch XRP because of the SEC lawsuit. So that was months ago now. Can you imagine how many institutions are probably on the sidelines or maybe even purchased their XRP stacks and just waiting for that clarity for XRP to pump? So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword here because the market is still a spec market. We do still run on, the speculative price of Bitcoin, and other cryptocurrencies generally follow Bitcoin, right? If you guys just take a look at coin market cap here, you can see everything is basically dancing at the same pace as Bitcoin. Bitcoin up 1.43%. We got Ethereum up 1.2. We got BNB coin up a little bit, 0.7%. We got XRP up about 0.25%. Cardano's up about 0.42. Dogecoin up 1.85. So everything up a little bit today, give or take. We aren't really seeing too many high flyers. I mean, and when we do, they are usually outliers. And even within the last 24 hours, the highest flyer here, at least in the top 100, is the Stacks coin STX, which actually isn't that much considering Bitcoin's already up about 1.5% almost. So the biggest takeaway here, guys, institutions bullish on the crypto sector in this bear market. And for good reason too. If dollar dominance is going down, we're going to need some of this DLT cryptocurrency technology in order to help bridge new types of payments. Like if some of these countries, for example, create their own central bank digital currencies or create a new world reserve currency that they want to use amongst themselves, the BRICS countries as one example, because we're constantly getting news like this. This is a new one. France has made it illegal to pay over 100 euros in cash. So this kind of setting the stage for another point I want to make. So they have said now cash transactions must not exceed certain limits. The legal threshold are set out in this article here and following this article for the Monetary and Financial Code. And guys, here it is right here in plain English. I'm surprised it's not in plain French. In plain English, 1,000 euros maximum cash payment by individual residents in France for tax purposes or for a professional activity. So this is the backdrop that is currently setting the standard for the technology moving forward. We also have this guy's French President Macron. He says that Europe must reduce dependence on the US dollar. So now is it not only countries like Russia and Malaysia and who else? Saudi Arabia. We had a whole bunch of countries basically stating the same, that they don't want to be so dependent on the US dollar, that they want to reduce their dependence on the US dollar. Well, now even Western countries are coming out and saying this. President Macron says that Europe must reduce dependence on US dollar. Here's a quote: "The worst thing would be to think that we Europeans must become followers on this topic and adapt to the American rhythm or a Chinese overreaction. Europe must better fund its defense industry, develop nuclear and renewable energy, and reduce dependence on the US dollar to limit its reliance on the United States," he said further. Macron said Europe should not accelerate the conflict, but take the time to build its position as the third pole between China and the United States. In comments to the French newspaper Les Echos, Macron has just returned from a 3-day state visit to China. So I don't know, maybe he's being influenced a little bit here. Maybe they made a deal behind the scenes. And one last quote here: "The expectation is that this will reduce costs, promote even greater bilateral trade, and facilitate investment," the Brazilian Trade and Investment Promotional Agency said. So it looks as though they also met with Brazil at this Chinese conference. So interesting, now we're seeing Macron suggesting that even Europe should now move away, should untie itself from US dollar dependence. And another one here, guys, Iran. In the Middle East, Iran says reducing US dollar influence will minimize West's domination over the global economy. You guys seeing a trend here? This is getting more and more alarming as the months go on. A top Iranian security official said on Sunday that reducing the US dollar's influence on regional and international trade will minimize the West's domination over the global economy. Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, Ali Shamkhani, made the remarks in a meeting with the Russian president's aide Igor Levitin in the Iranian capital Tehran, according to SNSC affiliate Noor News. During the meeting, Shamkhani said the process to reduce the dollar's clout on regional and international transactions has already started. So he's even saying, look, guys, this is a snowball that is going to gain momentum, noting that many countries are joining the path, as I just mentioned. He described the initiatives finalized between Iran and Russia in the area of monetary and banking transaction as an effective method for dooming the illegal Western sanctions to failure. Well, that is certainly one thing that Russia and Iran have in common. U.S. sanctions. Shamkhani expressed satisfaction with the improved level of economic cooperation between Iran and Russia over the past few months, highlighting the need to accelerate the joint economic project's implementation. So again, I'm not surprised that Iran is also saying this, considering even Saudi Arabia, who, at a point in time was very friendly with the United States, is now saying, okay, well, maybe we are going to denominate oil sales using the Saudi, I think it was the Saudi benchmark and not the American benchmark. And we're, oh yeah, by the way, we're also not using the American dollar. So, again, a trend towards the BRICS countries, a new form of a new type of economy is going to be emerging. US dollar dependence is, as we're seeing, becoming less and less. And so, what is this ultimately going to do to the dollar? And, again, just going back to this article, this is probably why we are seeing institutional investors moving out of, let's say, the dollar and really looking into cryptocurrency, because they realize this is, as Tapiero states here, this is a once-in-a-generation type opportunity. So, what else can we glean from this, guys? And how could this influence RippleNet technology? Well, it's time again to decode something that Ripples.xrp noticed here. I thought this was a very astute observation with regards to the Bearableguy boat riddle from back a few Easters ago. I think it was, by the way, I hope you guys did celebrate a happy Easter. If you guys do celebrate Easter, Bearableguy posted this, I believe it was Easter 2020, the boat riddle. And if I am to put things into perspective, date-wise, time-wise, Easter 2020 was right after the beer flu lockdown. So we were only about a month in, okay? Once economies really shut down here in March of 2020, we're feeling like what is going to happen next. Some among us, though, were suggesting, this is the beginning of the Great Reset. This is the first phase, to basically shut down the economy and, essentially usher in the beginning of the end. Now, Easter of 2020 would have been in and around here somewhere. So, essentially right after this lockdown, the beer flu, fairly new for a lot of people. A lot of people were wondering what the heck, my business shut down. I can't go to work. What am I going to do for money? Everybody's staying at home and wearing masks and all that stuff. So I thought I'd bring that up just to give you guys a little bit of context here. So Ripples says, so what does the HMS Titanic have to do with this cartoon? Some thoughts, not certainties here, but again, just a hypothesis. 111 years ago, April 15th, the Titanic sank. And for those of you guys who did not know, the Titanic sank with opposers of the Federal Reserve. What, you ask? Oh yeah, it's a thing. B. Guggenheim, I. Strauss, and John Astor, Elite Wealth. And what was suggested here was that J.P. Morgan had something to do with the sinking of the Titanic. So the theory goes as such: the Rothschilds were heavily implicated. JPM owned the Titanic by proxy. The Fed was set up in part by J.P. Morgan. JP and the Rothschilds, the same, equal the king. So if you guys remember the king from this riddle, they are the king, they are the leaders, they are who basically rule the financial system today. So this is the symbolism here that Ripples in Wales is noticing. So they are the king. The Fed is 110 years old. The Fed is 111 years old, 23, 12, 24. So the Fed, in my opinion, will be changed on December the 24th. So a bit of numerology thrown in here. The Fed equals 111 years old. So that means that will be the completion of this phase, of this cycle. JPM are being removed from power. JPM equals liquidity for SWIFT. The Rothschilds are also being removed from power. The Rothschilds control SWIFT. Ripple, which is the purple currency, is becoming SWIFT 2.0. SWIFT, which is the old cross-border remittance system, Ripple is the new cross-border remittance system. Now, if we go back to this riddle, we can see which way the boat is pointing. It is traveling, if you're looking at it directly, it is traveling right. And if you were to throw a compass on here and just to assume north, east, south, west, it's kind of hard to give directions on a two-dimensional image. Nevertheless, we'll just assume that. What Ripples in Wales is suggesting here is that the original sailing went from east to west. So basically the UK to the United States. I don't know if you guys caught the video I did this morning. If you did not, I will link it up here in the top right-hand corner. But I showed this chart in this morning's video, essentially demonstrating the world reserve currencies over the centuries. And the last one before the US dollar was the British sterling pound. So it would indicate that the monetary system would have flowed from east to west, from Britain to the United States. But now that we're at the end of this new financial system, this is what we are seeing. This sailing is from west to east, from the US to the UK. So are we traveling from west to east if we are to assume that north is at the top here? North, east, south, west. Okay, let's continue down here. So the ship has a new captain, which is Ripple. The ship has a new monetary policy, so it's going to include all these different types of currencies, including Bitcoin, including XRP, and including the US dollar, and maybe some other currencies as well. The ship has a new digital dollar. Okay, the ship has a new standard, which is XRP. So guys, is this another clue? I mean, I never thought Bearableguy would be Ripple's captain of the ship, although that totally makes sense. The king is obviously on ice, and the ship imagery conjuring up what happened to these three gentlemen here. Isidor Straus, Benjamin Guggenheim, and John Jacob Astor all died on the Titanic, April 15th, 1912. Nothing about that seems odd until you realize those three men were the only thing standing in the way of the Federal Reserve. Awful convenient. Iceberg, the Fed was born 20 months later. Now, to add another bizarre layer to this, okay, I did a Google search and I found this, okay, noted men on the lost Titanic, Colonel Jacob Astor with his wife, Isidor Straus and his wife, and Benjamin Guggenheim were aboard. Now, this is directly from the New York Times, okay, directly from the NewYorkTimes.com, and this is in their archives, April 16th, 1912. I really wish I could click on this and read this, but you do have to subscribe for that. Full text unavailable for the digitized archive article. Subscribers may view the full text of this article in its original form. But basically, that's the headline, Noted Men on the Lost Titanic. So this, in fact, did happen. There are even some articles that you can find about this. The sinking of the Titanic was orchestrated by the Rothschilds and JP Morgan. Now, I'm sure this was posted by somebody who had a theory, and I'm going to tell you why I think that in a second. JP Morgan to kill prominent businessmen who oppose the creation of the Federal Reserve. So basically, a whole article on this. Here, let me just go down here. The man says that some of the world's richest people were supposed to be aboard the ship, including the Rothschilds, a European banking family, and American businessman JP Morgan, who he claimed was trying to create the Federal Reserve at the time. Morgan owned the companies that managed the Titanic. There was also another guy on the ship. The man continued. His name was Mr. Astor, and so it gives some background on him. To get rid of him, the Rothschilds and Morgan hyped up the Titanic's first voyage before canceling their own trips at the last second. The man claimed the ship sank, Astor died, and the politicians who supposedly supported Astor and opposed to the central bank pivoted, and in 1913, the Federal Reserve was created. So a very, very interesting theory here. That is clearly trying to be buried by the powers that be, because when we go to Google and we just look up Isidor Straus Federal Reserve here on Google, what you find here is a bunch of fact-checking, QAnon conspiracies, false rumors. There's a wild theory that the Rothschilds sank the Titanic. But then down here, guys, yeah, from the New York Times from 100+ years ago, the question of reserves. Check it out. They published it in the newspaper. Mr. Isidor Straus argues for the recognition of the Central Association's note as reserve money. And this guy's even more interesting because this article was from before the sinking of the Titanic in 1911. Again, I cannot click on this article, but this is online. This is from the New York Times, from their archive, from their official. Look, this is their URL, directly from their website. So how much of this should we believe? And are the powers that be trying to cover it up with all these, Snopes articles and fact-checking this and fact-checking that? When in fact, the New York Times back 110 or so years ago had published these articles about these three individuals. One of them has been confirmed. Isidor Straus argues for the recognition of the Central Association notes as reserve money. So could there be more than meets the eye? And is Ripple and Wales onto something? Was Bearableguy pointing us in this direction the entire time? I can totally see how this connects, but I want to hear what you guys think. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you like the content I'm providing. I always love hearing your comments. See you in the next one, guys.